We're having some debate as to whether to make this an official Nothing But Worry video, but we will go with Bonnie's suggestion that it be one. So,
Well, I have a good reason for doing it. This is a special night. It's
okay,
Tuesday. And you're home because I'm worried about you.
I ain't getting sleep today, and I'm not going to go to work with no sleep and just suffer like a coal mine beast of burden. So, all right.
It's more than that. And you know the reason that I am concerned about you. Because when you are tired, that is when you're more susceptible to having your seizures.
All right.
So
Here's the situation. About 15 minutes ago, I read some pieces from a book I wrote about 2 years ago to Bonnie, and we had a little discussion about it afterwards. And Bonnie was like, "Oh, that was such a good little discussion. We should have recorded it." So we're going to try to replicate it as best we can. Now I'm going to start off by trying to find the pieces that Okay, the name of this book is called Tales of Clark Seville When He Was a Bear. Basically, I had 4 70-page wire-bound notebooks, and I filled them up, and each notebook became a part of this novel. So I've been printing them over the last couple of days, so I have all 4 parts printed up now. And I've been rereading this book for the first time in 2 years, maybe.
are you reading this aloud on your videos? On your channel?
No, the book I'm reading online right now is one I wrote about 15 years
What's
ago.
that one
It's
called?
called Dallas Pimento.
Oh, okay.
And it's totally different. Clark's Tales of... Okay, a couple years ago, I wrote a book called At Home with the Gas Giants. And there's a character in that book called Clark Seville who's like a secret agent. And it's revealed in the book that he wasn't always a human. He started off as this bear thing. And when he joined the spy agency, he had to go through this process to become a human. And a couple of years after I wrote the book, I got to thinking, he was such a good character. I want to write a whole book about when he was a bear. So the name of this book is Tales of Clark Seville When He Was a Bear. And as with all my books, there are discursive passages that have nothing to do with the plot. So, I know, it was both these. This is from part 2, this is, of the book. And we're going to start off with a piece that Bonnie particularly liked. All right. All right, this is called Duran Duran's Dark Techno Side Project / Album, The Administration, Drugs in Space. Ultimately, it was Nick Rhodes' decision. John Taylor and Simon Le Bon had wanted to use the Duran Duran name for the project, but someone in management had caught Rhodes' ear and warned against dilution of the brand. Thus, although everyone knew who was behind it, Drugs in Space was released not as a Duran Duran album, but rather one by the administration. Erstwhile guitarist Andy Taylor complained in the British music papers that there already had been a band called the Administration, but no one listened. "Think of it as Metal Arcadia," suggested Simon. "Call it a German power station," offered John. The first track on the album, Pray for a Savior, featured prominently in the film The Day of the Black Plowman.
Starring, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger with a name like that.
But otherwise received no significant notice. "I told them," Andy complained. "No, you didn't," the other Andy, Summers, retorted. Still, the album succeeded in garnering some much-needed artistic credibility for the band. After the disappointment of artistic credibility, Duran Duran's 27th long player, most critics were relieved to be able to praise their high school heroes once again. "They're still so goddamn good-looking," raved or moaned many a profile piece on the band. John Taylor wanted so badly to reveal the news of his surgery. In the end, Drugs in Space came and went like some astronomical anomaly that is only of interest to those with ready access to a telescope. The boys were back doing what they do best, with their danceable micro ballad, Something for Jupiter, on the soundtrack to Mystery Volcano 2. Andy Taylor remained in a haze of confusion as to how things went so wrong. "I haven't even mentioned Roger, the drummer, but don't you worry." So what did you think of that?
I thought that if you put that in print online, that it could enter into Duran Duran canon. Somebody would pick it up and go, I saw it on the internet, therefore it must be true.
All right. Now,
Better yet, what we do is we mock it up as if it had been ripped from the pages of a magazine and make it an obscure magazine that we create and put that on the thing and go, look, see? Citations and all.
oh, where the hell is this goddamn story at? Hold on. What is wrong?
I don't know. There's a lot.
Trying to find the damn. Okay. This is Okay. Here we go.
Is this about them going in the
Yeah.
apartment?
Yeah. All right. This is going to be a little bit edited because there's some stream of consciousness, or not that, but just to really discuss a bit inside the stories. All right. Now this is from Notebook 1 of the same book, and this is about the early days of Clark Seville's career as an agent, and this is an adventure he had with his first partner, Henry Bussell, who's like an older agent. And these are going to be a couple stories connected together, and or pieces connected together. And all you have to know is that Clark Seville and Henry Bussell have broken into this guy's apartment to ransack it, look around. Look what I found, Clark Seville directed Henry Bussell's attention to the bottle with the secret compartment and its contents. Bussell was just tucking a nice old lighter into his pocket when Seville surprised him. He threw a glance over his shoulder at Seville. Jesus, you scared the shit out of me, he hissed. Turning and stepping closer, he inspected the cash. Good work, Seville, he praised the bear, whom he had taken to calling by his last name. He raised his eyebrows and looked up at his colleague. He seemed to be considering something. You want to split it? He asked, with as much casual but suggestive innocence as was possible given the situation. Seville nearly gaped. He truly did not know how to respond. Taking a worldly viewpoint that he didn't actually feel, understand, or deserve to express given his experience, he limited himself to questioning if such theft wouldn't make their visit evident to Odom Sana. Bussell took a deep breath. Seville, he spoke with preparatory pedantry, you're not under any illusions that our employers are the good guys, are you? The bear considered, or seemed to anyway. Is this shampoo? He asked, holding out the bottle for Bussell to smell. No, it's lotion, Bussell explained after a quick investigation. Down in the parking... Okay, now, the guy who lives in the apartment is coming back with his girlfriend. Seville accepted none of the money he had found. Bussell kept it all. Pockets bulging with papers and small objects, the latter was taking a look at the horoscope on its tripod against the drapes when the sound of the keys in the apartment door was heard. Bussell and Seville looked at each other. Back! Bussell mouthed frantically, motioning. Seville stepped soundlessly, sure-footedly, backwards into the shadows. Bussell dropped to the floor and crouched behind a sofa. I don't want to get a tattoo, the woman was saying as the door swung open. Odom Sana was chuckling at these words. He started to say something about conservatism as he locked the door behind himself, but suddenly stopped. What is it? One could hear the woman say. Bussell could see nothing. He was preparing to move whichever way proved necessary. He heard the rustle of clothes, the tread of feet, gulps and gasps, half-vocalized words. After a particularly solid thump, he risked a peek around the side of the sofa. Clark Seville's snout and glistening black eyes were directly in front of him. Time to go, Seville growled low. Now. Bussell got to his feet, helped by one of the bear's prosthetically converted paws around his upper arm. What? He started to ask, but found the answer only a step or two away. Sana and his friend lay in a heap a few feet to the right of the doorway. Their bodies were twisted and folded in a way that afforded no description other than that of the dead. Now it was Bussell's turn to master unwarranted indignation, outgrown naivete, and just general surprise. Well, he sighed, we're not the good guys, Seville reminded him. Bussell didn't have time just then to mention that they weren't the bad guys either.
Jesus fuck, that is dark, man.
Yeah, it's one of the darkest things I've ever written, this book, because it's got serious shit in it. Yeah.
Where does this come from in you?
Well, when the Toadsgobot character was around, he was like a god in that he could go anywhere and he could get out of trouble whenever he wanted to. And over the years, I wrote several and created not just written characters, but also drawn characters that are basically stand-ins for Toadsgobot. They're also these sort of big, lumbering guys that can just have adventures.
Now, you read another clip earlier to me that mentioned a character that was imaginary but could be heard, unlike Toadsgobot and his imaginary friend Jerry.
Oh, that's the one that you really freaked out about.
Yeah,
Okay.
That one made me realize
That my brain is fucked up.
that your brain is off.
Yeah.
And
that's what prompted the discussion. That's right. Okay,
you and I have been through a lot of shit. When you have had your tumors, when you've had severe seizures, I mean, grand mal seizures that last more than 5 minutes, you come out of these events or you stay in this period, like when the tumor was so large this last time, there was this period where you were just devolving in front of my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And then having to come back around, whether it's after a couple of weeks or a month, or just after 5 minutes of having just toppled over. Like, we were watching something one day, and I looked back to get your reaction on your face, and you just toppled directly over, straight into the trash can, busted your nose, covered with blood, and within 10 seconds you were back up, but you had no memory of the preceding couple of minutes from what we were watching. You didn't understand how you had fallen. You had no memory of that at all. You had no memory of hitting anything. You were so totally confused.
Well, okay. I think I'm beginning to see really tonight that you have been thinking partially that my brain is fucked up from,
It's a number of things.
years of different kinds of abuse or problems. But
Well,
you can see in the art that it's just the way my brain works in a certain extent.
Oh. Earlier this evening, we were reviewing some of your art, and there's this fabulous, fabulous painting. And that's the one you should use as your title for this one.
Which one is it?
It's the one with Shel Silverstein.
Oh,
He has it's you as Shel Silverstein, and his brain is exposed, laid bare, and there is some sort of creature that is the doctor who is there poking around in it and such. And,
all right.
dear God.
All right.
So read this other one.
Okay, this is called, this is another discursive, well, no, not really. Let me just get to it. All right. Macaroni salon bassoon. And thus we arrive at another tiresome explanation, and one of those glimpses behind the curtain that happen sometimes at the theater or by way of some postmodern magician, but which are still intensely frowned upon in fiction. You see, everyone knows that Toadsgobot was the head of the suggestible trapezoid, and everyone knows that I used to beat Toadsgobot. But what until now only a handful of old men in a room high up at the summit of the Vasily Tower knew is that the suggestible trapezoid was yet another link in a long chain of organizations and corporations and informal associations, the ultimate chief executive of which is me. I am. Growsome Properties is just another subsidiary of the Trapezoid's aesthetic marketing division, I told West. Ah, and that's how you got involved with designing the Sucrets elephant, as your tape concluded triumphantly. Who said that? Joe puzzled. He looked about uneasily. Nobody, I was quick to reassure him. It's just one of my incorporeal attendants. Unlike Toadsgobot's imaginary friend Jerry, whom everybody could see, my little friend here is invisible. And mostly, I emphasize, casting a scowl to the side, inaudible. Now, I smiled at West and Joe, I think you can understand why I am the ideal person to carry on with the telling of the tales of Clark Seville when he was a bear. Joe's eyes moved fearfully to the left, hoping to catch West's eyes doing the same, but to his right. Sure, Joe grinned. Whatever you say. I smiled at his dubiousness. You're confused, I judged, clapping him on the shoulder. Don't worry, my friend. Everything is going to be just fine. Have a seat, both of you. Allow me to resume the telling of tales. And so, Azurtape took up his own narration, turning to face whatever fourth wall he saw in the silence of his imaginary mind. Lance neatly avoided the subject of macaroni salon bassoon.
There's a moment of silence here because, like, once again, I am shocked listening to this.
When I read that, Bonnie said, "What are you on?" Or how stoned are you, or something like that.
How stoned were you?
I said, I'm not. I just haven't had but 2 hours of sleep today. Oh, God.
It's more than that.
And then, so then she's like, well, where does all this come from? And I told her, and this is what she thought was so compelling about.
Say it.
All of this is interconnected, okay? She said something like, yeah, where does this come from? Does this come from your actual life? And I said, well, yeah, partly because all my art is interconnected. It's a web of symbols that are like metaphors for my life, people in it, the way I think about things. It's all connected. Even most of the song lyrics. And what was it you said? Oh, you said, when you get old, do you think you're going to be so fucked up that you'll actually believe all this stuff is reality? And I said, it's partly like that already.
Yeah, we live with these ideas, these realities, these stories that we create, that we tell ourselves, that are long running in our mind's eye as creatives. And so at one point or another, when old age hits, the senility begins, all the stories we've been telling ourselves as writers, when does that begin to filter into the reality of life? And when do we start believing we actually lived that way, or that's who we were, or that for you there was a trans-dimensional scowl that took you from one universe to another?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because you were asking something about the Tozcabud character. I can't remember, or something. Anyway, the point was, and I was telling her that mainly after I got rid of the Tozcabud character, both as a nom de plume and as at that time, I killed off Tozcabud for about 11 years. But anyway, I had stand-ins for him as well. There were other similar characters. They were all sort of like these big guys with overcoats, and they could do have adventures. But you just mentioned the transdimensional scowl.
Yes.
Colonel Calcular runs it, and he's like a Doctor Who type figure, sort of like Tozcabud, and he was one of those stand-ins.
I do not realize that.
Yeah.
What does that say about Violet and me?
Well, I don't know if you remember.
Are you? Is this one of your work wives now?
No.
Becoming your love interest?
No. When she's introduced, before I was doing my current online magazine, I did a print magazine called Crocodile. And he meets her in one of those issues, and they start being an item. And she's asking him, well, you haven't told me anything about your background, who you are, where you're from. And he said, in the past, I've lived sort of a, rootless existence. I'm sort of a Doctor Who type character. I have a magic ship and I can go places. He said, but now that I've met you, I think I'm settling down and don't want to travel like that anymore. So there you go.
So I may be Violet in some certain level.
Maybe.
When the kids were growing up, one of the things you read them were the Harry Potter books. And the bad guy in it, he who must not be named, his soul is divided up into all these different facets.
That's right.
And they have to go and they have to get this all back in order to destroy the essence of who he is. So I'm just wondering, have you divided up your soul, so to speak? Is your creative soul this myriad of characters?
Well, as people have pointed out, people always say the brain is like a computer, but the truth is the brain is like a bunch of computers hooked together. And I think that if different aspects of your mentality are developed enough to each have a sentience, then you could have, in seriousness, you could have like multiple identities in your head.
You and I watched something very interesting. It was an old Scientific American show with Alan Alda.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a man who suffered from epilepsy, and in order to control and reduce the number of seizures that he had, they went through and they divided the lobes of his brain, so that you had the separate functions on the left lobe and the right lobe of the brain. And when he was tested to see how he reacted to things, he would process in each lobe something differently. So that he would see something, but it would come out as a word on the other side, or a word would give him an impression of something. And there were these, everything was disjointed and cut apart. And I have to wonder, all the different surgeries that you've gone through, add in the seizures.
No, the thing is...
No, I'm just wondering if this has added different layers to the way that you think.
See, the thing is, I can remember thinking essentially like this when I was in second grade.
What, you've always been fucked up?
Oh, yeah, I've always been fucked up. I remember being in class in third grade and believing or daydreaming that there was a tunnel under my desk that I could go through to wind up on the far side of the playground, and I could get away to this other place, you know.
Our daughter asked me last week about why we didn't have her tested for autism, Asperger's, etc. And I said, you know, when you were in second grade, the only thing that came up was that you lived in a daydream world, and that we joked, oh, just poke her with a stick and rouse her from her daydreams. I said, you were very lucky to be able to escape that. A lot of us don't have the ability to escape into some little world of our own creation. When I was 2 or 3 years old, my grandparents came to visit us in Germany, and my granny, to the day she died, talked about how I said, don't sit on my birdcage, don't sit on my birdcage. It was an imaginary thing I had. And I know it's crazy. I have no memory of it at all. But I told her, I said, you know, it must be nice to be able to have these imaginary things, these daydreams, these imaginary friends in a world where so much is chaotic all around you. How much do we create in our own mind in order to escape the things? I wonder with you had no outlet. They didn't even have you tested for anything, and they didn't recognize your intelligence until later. I wonder how much of this was your own creation to cope with the world that you were in.
I have something here I marked that I wanted to read.
What is it?
All right, this is just a little tiny passage I wanted to read. The device on Clark Seville's wrist was showing an old John Wayne movie. Seville clapped his hand over it to keep it from distracting him. So, he thought, he had made mistakes in the past, and he'd probably make them again in the future. But the important thing is that he wasn't making one now. And, he added as he got to his feet, even if it turned out he had made yet another mistake, the important thing, the really even more important thing, was to pretend that he hadn't made a mistake, to play the part of the infallible hero. the one whose actions were directed on a moment-to-moment basis by some infallible inner sense. I thought that was really good. If you're in a position like some big rock star, some big movie star, or some politician, whatever fuck ups you make, you have to just pretend, oh, I meant that, or no, that wasn't a fuck up at all,
And then you become the president of the United States.
or like in the case of an artist, a really productive one. If you make a mistake, you just use it to your advantage.
Henry Darger?
Yeah, Darger, actually, I think it's
Darger,
pronounced. Yeah.
sorry. So you've got this artist who created this world, little girls fighting off things. It went on for thousands of pages and thousands of pictures, and
There was a man who invented a inner life, and just it
yes.
came out. Yeah, he
Yes.
lived it for 50 years.
I'm wondering, we joke often, like tonight, oh, what the kids will do with all the stuff that's left behind. Oh, they'll sell it and live off of their fathers. And I have to wonder if instead what we'll be left with is an analysis like Darger had of his work.
Well, I mean, to me, there is sort of a commercial aspect, because I think that if the work has a richer, interconnected web of associations with my personal life, it will be worth more after I'm dead, because people are like, oh, he really invested a lot of thought and his life into this stuff, and so it might be worth researching or looking into, or.
John Gardner, did he do a book about somebody who studied somebody else's life and art? Who am I thinking of?
I don't know.
Barth? Maybe? I don't know.
I don't know.
I thought that one of those professors / novelist had written a book that was about being a professor who researches a novelist, and it happens in his...
It sounds very familiar. I
Yeah,
can't think.
I can't. But,
It sounds like a theme a lot of art authors have used.
I'm just wondering, had I been 15 years younger than you, if when you die I would then become the Lance Ash professor, the expert on.
Yeah, unfortunately, you really have to have academic connections
Yeah.
if you're going to have any kind of serious art career. But I've pretty much given up on that. I've just relegated myself to minor artist status now.
There have been times in our history together, particularly when your illness was quite bad, as I thought perhaps I could write about it, but I don't know. It would just be too much. It's all so much in the moment, having to deal with the emotional aspects of coping with your medical traumas.
Well, you started this because you wanted to discuss the ramifications of whatever it was I said. So,
Well,
I mean, if we worked our way through that, I don't want to make this a regular episode, where we just...
no, it's just, I look at your work, and it absolutely is interconnected, all of it. And it's connected to our lives. So many times you'll do a cartoon, course, male, female, husband, wife. I'm like, is that me? Is that supposed to be me? Is that us? And no, it's just somehow or another loosely identifiable as the aspects of being a couple.
You seemed to be shocked earlier that there's a running themes and interconnected characters in between all these various things.
No, it isn't that I'm shocked. I've certainly read your stuff enough that I know. I mean, you've had yourself first and foremost at the center of your work in your comics, the way that you manifested. I did not realize the Colonel was one of those manifestations until tonight. Some were very obvious, being called Lance. Others, Toadsgabode, your magical word as a child. Toadsgabode.
I've got several characters. Dallas Pimento is a character sort of like that. There's a bunch of them.
I am kind of curious. Where does Jerry fit in?
When I was a little, I wanted Toadsgabode to have a sidekick. So, when I was a little bitty kid, my mother said I had an imaginary friend named Jerry. And I think I got that name from the dentist on the Bob Newhart show because he was Bob's friend.
Yeah.
So anyway, I decided, I'll make him named Jerry. And so that's where he comes from.
Why does he look like a little bitty Frenchman?
I don't know. That just popped in my head one day, and I decided to draw him like that because I thought it would be a funny shape for him.
You know, I used to work with David Poss, and he looked like Jerry.
Oh,
and
really?
one day I took him a copy of one of your cartoons, and I said, I don't know whether you're going to like this or not. And he goes, oh my God, I can see it. It looks just like me.
Well, you noted years ago, Jerry doesn't have pupils in his eyes because he's not a real
It's
person.
like buttons sewn on.
Yeah.
Those little black buttons that
And
are on my Pooh Bear.
he can't eat regular food. He has to eat ethereal paste. Oh, Lord.
I feel like it's like this great Darger work, you know?
That book I mentioned earlier, At Home with the Gas Giants, the one where Clark Seville originally appeared, that whole book is about Toadsgabode going to this place of inspiration in order to be able to finish this book he's been writing. And that whole book was about the struggle to write something of heft and significance. And
How many of your paintings are associated with your comics or these books?
I have only maybe once or twice done paintings that have some of my cartoon characters in them.
Huh.
I just don't like doing that.
Why is it separate? If you
I
got this
don't
great
know.
body of work that's interconnected, except for
I think the reason is because when you when you paint, the lines you lay down on the canvas are directly taken from the line you draw, like with a pencil or a pen. And so therefore, when I paint, I like for the understructure to be very gestural. I like it to be the line that naturally comes out. But when you do a cartoon character, it has to be consistent. And so even though there's a little bit of your own hand in the lines, you're still having to conform to a model that you've created because you want the character to be consistently the same appearance.
Now, in your paintings over the years, there have been occasions where you paint your family.
Mm-hmm.
There's this one that we saw tonight. We're all on the yellow brick road, and everyone's in tow, and we all look basically like ourselves. Then there was this other one where we're all in scene together, but everyone is doing their separate thing.
Oh, you saw that one. I didn't see that when you looked at it.
Oh, I didn't see it tonight. It's one that I remember. There's like one of us watching X-Files, one of us building a model, one of us painting something, one of us cooking or something. It's that sort of thing. We're all there together but yet apart.
Yeah.
Do you find, other than the paintings, do you put your family into the cartoon? Or is it just the
No.
relationship aspect?
No, I don't like to put real people in my. I don't like it to be directly autobiographical, because I don't want to piss anybody off. I don't want to say anything bad about anybody, or you know. I don't understand somebody like Crumb, who can basically put his wife in his comics and say, "I cheat on her all the time,"
Oh, and she cheats on him.
and
in
I just don't.
those,
I just
too.
don't.
It's
Or
awful.
or just say bad things about somebody that you know directly. I just.
It's like taking your fights to a public arena. No. Okay. Music. How does your music? Is it just yet another expression, or do you find it connected sometimes?
A lot of the lyrics are directly taken from my philosophy of life.
But they don't reflect the cartoons. They don't reflect
No.
the paintings.
No.
Yeah, like you did one recently, "Atheist at the Post Office."
I just thought it was a funny name, funny title for a song.
Yeah, I finally paid attention to the lyrics and realized how political it is. Mentioning Trump and his white nationalist and all the others.
I'm getting sleepy, so I think we should cut this off.
I
I
know,
gotta.
babe.
Let's see how long this video's.
I can see your eyes are beginning to.
38 minutes. That's not bad. All right, we will. I will call it. Okay, is that it?
Yeah, I'm still worried about you and senility in your old age.
Thank you. I'll just eat some carrot.
I'll take the keys from the transdimensional scow and hide them.
Okay. All right, we're out of here. Bye.
Bye.